So the old cliche is that if you fail a plan, you plan to fail. And nowhere is that more true than when you're doing your first engine, or any engine for that matter. Because the same steps that you take for your first are the ones that you should take for the rest of them. And developing those good practices and habits now is important. But let's first go back to the comments on the last video, because I was talking about things that you're going to have to buy to do the job, and how I left out ring compressor. I don't know, but I did, and somebody pointed it out. So yes, you're going to need to buy a ring compressor too. They're cheap, like 20 bucks. And this is all you need, nothing elaborate. So, in the comments of that last video, because we asked for suggestions, and we got a lot of really great suggestions, one of the comments that kept repeating itself was bag and tag stuff. Bag and tag your parts as they come off. And also take pictures. Now, that's one of the benefits of living in the future like we do now, is that you have a digital camera. And you can take pictures of every assembly as it comes off the engine. So you'll know what fits where and how it fits and so on and so forth. Take as many pictures as you need to. Us old timers, we still work off of memory. Like I don't take pictures of stuff as I take it apart, because it's just habit. We didn't have that when I was younger. Occasionally we would scroll out a picture real quick to remind us how things went. But for the most part, as you take it apart, there are connections that are made in your brain that say, well, this goes here, and there's an order to things. So let's talk about that order to things for a minute, and let's talk about the bag and tag. The bag and tag, meaning that you take the bolts and the bracketry and whatnot off of an assembly, put it in a bag and label it, is valid and it's good and it works. I'd say 90% of the people out there benefit from doing that. But not everybody's memory and not everybody's mind works the same way. Me, what I've done, I've tried bagging and tagging stuff in the past when I was lost. It was like a new job, something I've never done before. Well, my handwriting and my thought process is so sloppy that I go back and it was, I shouldn't have even bothered with that. What I do is I take parts off of the engine. So now you got the engine out of the car. You got the engine out of the car, and now it's got all of the accessories. It's got the water pump, it's got the air conditioning brackets, and whatever odds and ends are attached to it. They all have to be taken off. And what I do is I take them off and I lay them out in order. Now, I wouldn't normally be using valuable table space to do this, but just for demonstration purposes, this would be just a corner off to the side. So, in the order that I've taken things off, so here's the water pump and the pulley, here's that idle bracket and AC compressor, motor mount brackets. So what I've done here is that I've grouped the bolts, the order that I took the parts off of, and I grouped the bolts with each piece that goes. Yes, I could have bagged these and labeled them as water pump pulley bolts, but it's just, for me, it's easier to just do it like this and set it and forget it. Now, there's also situations where you have a unique fastener, like this one right here. It's easier for me to put it right back into the assembly that it came from, and just give it a couple of turns. Now it's in there, it's not going to go anywhere, and I know that when I go to put this back together again, this is the unique fastener that goes in this spot. It may not work, this may not work for everybody. This is the way I do it. You see, I've taken these bolts, and I've put them back in the holes that they come from. So this way you know that whatever length, some of them are a little longer, some are a little shorter, whatever length fastener you're dealing with, or whatever thread, whatever it happens to be, goes back into the same position it came from. So this is how I go about it. Everybody has their own way, but like I said, it's that planning. You have to plan. If you just take all the parts off and all the bolts off willy-nilly and just leave them laying all over the place, you're going to triple your time putting it back together again, and odds are you're going to make mistakes, just dumb mistakes that are going to hold you back. So this is the order that I do stuff in. The coil used these bolts with the nuts. They're a stud, so they went back into place. The thermostat housing has a long bolt and a short bolt. I stuck them back in where they go. So you get the idea. I took the ignition off, and I left all of the wires in order, so this isn't always possible. This just happens to have this wire holder, so that when I go to put this back on, boom, it all fits together. Very important stuff. Now, as far as the tagging and labeling of things, sometimes on the engine you'll have a harness, a separate harness that goes in the car, or even just when you're taking the engine out of the car, and you're going to have these monster wiring harnesses and vacuum harnesses. That's another situation where it's recommended to tag it. You know, this wire came from this thing, and this vacuum hose came from here. And again, see, I don't necessarily do that. If taking the time and labeling a lot isn't really your speed, keep in mind that harnesses have a memory, especially the older harnesses. And what I have found is after you've put an engine, let's say, back in the car, and you want to lay the harness in it, the easiest way to do it is to take the harness, lift it up free, and then just drop it on the engine, and then just like straighten it out a little bit, right? And it will go back to the place where it wanted to go. And the fasteners, well, not the fasteners, the connectors are all going to be unique to the thing that they go to. So if you have 3 or 4 connectors in the same grouping, they'll all have different plugs. So it'll only fit on one way. Don't spend too much time going crazy with that. The exception that if you're dealing with an older Motronic setup, like if you've got an older Volkswagen or BMW or Volvo, yeah, make sure you tag those things very specifically because the plugs are the same and they're all grouped together closely, and it's very easy to screw those up and short circuit your processor. That's the exception to the rule. Almost everything else, the wires will only go on one way. So don't spend too much time stressing about that. All right, so we're going to go out to the motor now. We're going to give it its cleaning. Before we take it apart, we want to make sure that when we work on this thing, we're going to stay clean. We don't want a gacky mess, and we especially don't want puddles and fluids dripping all over our work area. So a couple of days ago, I took the drain plug out, took the oil filter off, and knocked a couple of freeze plugs out, so that whatever is in the engine, any liquids, are going to drain out now. So that when we do bring it inside, we're not going to have oil dripping, we're not going to have antifreeze dripping. These are good practices. Just get in the habit of doing it. Try not to be in a rush at this stage of the game, because rushing through the pre-job routines will foul you up as you go along. So try to develop best practices. And one of the best practices is let this thing drain in a place where it's not going to make a mess inside your shop. Let's go give it a cleaning. So now's the time you want to knock as many freeze plugs out as you can, because as you're cleaning the engine, you're going to want to get into the water jackets as well. Yep. See, perfect example. Look at how nice that looks on the outside, and then the inside is crusty, rusty. Never take these things for granted. All right, now for cleaning this, forget about engine cleaners, gunk, and all that other stuff. You want to use oven cleaner. This stuff works like a bandit. So don't worry so much about taping things off at this point, because it's all going to come apart and it's all going to get dried before it goes back into the shop. But give everything a nice coating of oven cleaner. Where you got big gack built up there, we're going to get in there with a screwdriver and loosen that all up. Hey, give it a first coat and let it set and percolate for a few minutes. And you need a couple of brushes. Get in there and work this stuff in. Don't wear nice clothes when you do this. Don't do it anywhere near stuff you don't want to get gacky. But this is important because any of the dirt that's left on this engine is going to come into the shop with you. And you definitely don't want that. You want to work as clean as possible. It's like fun, right? Distributor hole down. That's odd. Somebody swapped the distributor on this thing at some point and left this hole down on here because this one doesn't use it. Okay, so this is the first stage of cleaning. Now we're going to let this sit and just let the oven cleaner soak in there for, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes. And then we're going to hit it with the power washer. You could use a garden hose. Sometimes it takes 2 laps with this. And it just depends how gunky the motor is. So keep everything wet with this. Be patient. Let it do its job. And we'll see what we got in a few minutes. Okay. Much, much better than new. All right, see, that oven cleaner, there's no commercial engine cleaner you're gonna buy in an auto parts store that works as good as this oven cleaner does. And it doesn't leave a film. So, now we gotta let this thing dry off. And let it sit for a day or two. We're gonna turn it upside down. The oil plug is still out of it, but I'll let this thing drain, and the next time around we actually break it down and get inside and see what went wrong with this puppy. So that's it. I hope you got something out of that. I'll see you tomorrow.